Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are doing great. Thank you guys for joining me today. Today, I'm going to be talking about my paper, Seekers of National Parks, Attitude Towards Rules. So, national parks allow individuals of all backgrounds to experience nature and the wilderness of the United States. In fact, in 2017, records were broken when 84 million people visited one of the 64 national parks. So many people coming to national parks, I'd like to argue that visitors can be categorized in three groups: leisure seekers, spiritual seekers, and adventure seekers. Thus, in my paper, I will examine the manner in how these three groups communicate their ideal experience of nature and how it influences their activities and behaviors while in the parks, while specifically focusing on their attitude towards rules. So, scholars have argued that some visitors to national parks seek leisure experience through outdoor recreation. To some, it is biking. To some, it's hiking. So one guy in the transcript, it was drinking a beer. So there's actually a term for this. It's coined soft ecotourist. So they are defined as being more anthropogenic or people-oriented, and they prefer less physical and mentally demanding challenges while they're in nature. So rather than engaging in these rigorous activities, these individuals view camping and outdoor recreation as an escape from their busy lives and seek to reconnect with families through increased quality time and socialization. The second group. So scholars have also observed individuals who seek national parks as a way to reconnect. So this reconnection isn't just to nature, but it's also to oneself and our identity. We are constantly being pulled away from the environment through just increased urbanization and technology, where we kind of separate ourselves. But by visiting these national parks and just viewing their inherent sublime or sense of grandness and beauty, it leaves people with a feeling of awe, inviting them to continuously reflect on the experiences that they just had, thus allowing them to experience something known as the wilderness spirituality. This is defined by scholars as the ability of wilderness to evoke spiritual response in some people, thus creating an intangible relationship with nature, with the natural environment. Lastly, scholars have also observed individuals who partake in adventure recreational activities. So these aren't like your typical leisure activities where you're hiking or you're drinking a beer, but rather these are they have a little bit more weight to them. They're a little bit more dangerous, such as mountaineering or something along those lines. So they view this risk as a feedback loop, inviting them to partake in more and more of their desired risk. So these individuals also seek authentic nature, preferring to hike in undeveloped, more primitive conditions, often going off trail to avoid people. So the way I did this paper, so obviously I used Sam Sender Cook's transcript on the interviews, and she did interviews with visitors to Zion National Park. So after doing some initial coding, I noticed patterns of leisure, spirituality, and adventure. But in my initial coding, themes were limited and scattered. So I opened it up to even more. So out of the 20 interviews, I was able to use 17 of them, and I was able to place each interview in three categories: leisure seekers, spiritual seekers, and adventure seekers. And in order to determine visitors' attitude towards rules in national parks, I specifically focused in on how each interviewer responded to Sender Cook's question, "Have you ever hiked without a trail?" The results. So leisure seekers, they were the most commonly coded ones, being 9 of the 17. Convenience was their thing. They stayed in hotels, they rented out RVs, they chose not to go camping. And if they were to go camping, they'd specifically choose hikes because it's easy. So everything was out of convenience to them. Well, sometimes they brought kids, so it was required. But through this experience, they were able to have socialization as a family, and really connect to oneself. And when asked if you've ever hiked without a trail, 3 of the 9 said they had. Next, spiritual seekers. 5 of them were coded. 5 of the interviews were coded as spiritual seekers. They were described their experience as nature as a reset, allowing them to get away from our busy lives. Key phrases that they used were spiritual type of experience, or you're just in touch with everything. They had this sense of connectedness with them. And out of the 5 people that, out of the 5 interviews, only 1 of the people said that they had gone off hiking. Adventure seekers. These are the least coded amounts, with only 3 people doing it, 3 people being coded. So when asked how they did their trails, how they chose stuff, it was always the hardest. They sought adventure. They sought new experiences. They wanted to be tested, and they wanted to, feel the adrenaline going through them. And this gave them a sense of longing for authentic experiences. Thus, when they were asked about off-trail hiking, 2 of the 3 had said they had, thus enforcing that longing for authentic experiences. So, the significance of this paper is rooted in the understanding of potential preconceived notions people have when visiting national parks. So we must understand what they think in order to determine how we go about them. But overall, this study sought to test national park visitors' attitude towards rules, specifically focusing on the 3 groups: leisure seekers, spiritual seekers, and adventure seekers. In accordance to the literature, the adventure seeker was more likely to break the rules, with 60% of them being admitted, to 64% of them admitting that they had hiked without a trail. Thank you.